Today's lesson, we are going to be talking about logical operators. Logical operators, as the name implies, it helps us to check for logic. It also helps us to check for a combination of different conditions. So if we want to chain conditions, remember we've done some equal to, not equal to for comparison, right? And these logical operators helps us to chain more than one or two comparisons. That is what logical operators helps us to do. And one of them is this double bar is known as or, and we have the ampersand, double ampersand, which is known as and. I'm just translating what they mean. This double arrow does not have anything to do with logical operation. I'm just letting you to know that this and, this ampersand, double ampersand means the way you pronounce it in word is and. This double bar, the way you pronounce it is or. So the operation that it does when chaining two comparison, this one checks for either the left or the right. And this ampersand and checks for the two comparisons must be true. So when you are using or, let's give it a spin. This is or operation. So if we want to say 1 equals to 2, if I run this code right now, it's going to return false, right? Because 1 is not equals to 2. So if we now say or 1 equals to 1, if I run this, the whole condition is going to return true because 1 is equals to 1. So what this OR operation does is that it checks for two comparisons, and if any of the comparison is true, it will return true for the whole condition. If both condition is wrong, for example, it will return false in the whole condition. You see here, false. But if one of the condition is true, even if we add more condition, you can chain more than one comparison. So it's not only 2. You can chain 3, you can chain 5, 6, 7. There's no limit to how many comparisons you can check. So for this case now, we are checking 3. So if any of the 3 is true, the whole condition will return true. You see now, it's true. We can decide to add more condition after. 3 equals to 8, which is also false, but it will still return true because one of the condition is true. Is it clear? But if it is the AND operator, for example, if we replace this same condition with AND operation, and and. So this condition is going to return false because AND operation makes sure that each of the comparisons are all true for the whole condition to return true. So if I run this code, you get a false here, but you get a true for the all. So even if it is only one of the conditions that is wrong, and we still return a false for that one that is wrong. You see, it's still returning false unless the whole condition is true before AND operation will return true. Is it clear? So, and make sure that the whole conditions or the whole comparison is true for the whole condition to be true. Or returns true if any one of the comparison is true. That is that. There is also another logical operator that is called not. The symbol is exclamation. Exclamation, or you pronounce it as not when you want to say it as a word. To represent not. So for example, if we say 1 equals to 1, if you run this code, it's going to give you true, right? This is for the not operation. It's not there yet. But now, imagine we put a not before this condition. If we run this code, it will become false. So it's like checking that a condition is not true. Do you understand? So not, you use it to check if a comparison is not true. So if it is true, not will return false. If it is false, not will return true. Because this condition is true, not is returning false. If I make this condition to be false, not will return true. So it's like negation of the actual results of the comparison. You can also use not to check if a variable is defined or if a variable is initialized. For example, var x without a value. If we want to check if variable x is initialized with a value, we do not x. We return true or false depending if x has a value. So if we run this, not x return true, meaning that variable x is not initialized yet. It doesn't have value. That is what this means. So I don't want to say it is not initialized because there are some value you will initialize a variable to and not will still return false. Something like putting a zero value or empty string. So this is more tricky. When we dive deeper in programming, then you get to understand this. So now, if I assign value to x, if I assign a value to x, If I run this code again, then this becomes false because now X is initialized, it has a value. So, but if I put this to be 0, this will still be true because JavaScript sees 0 as a null value, like negative. The same with empty string. If you put an empty string, this will still return true because it's telling you that there is no value, no concrete value. But if you put something in this, then it's going to return false because there's a value in there. Let's do more example with not so that it's clearer, more clear to us. So if I say var y equals to true, var z equals to not y, console.log z. What will this give us? It's going to be false. Yes, it's going to be false because it is negating the value of y. It's going to be false. Correct. Okay. That is on logical operation. We also have type operators. Type operators. And one of the type operators is type of and instance of. So these are the two type of operators. And this type operator helps us to check for the data type of a given variable or literal. So it checks for the data type. It returns what data type is a particular value. For example, if you want to check the data type of X, for example, we can do something like this. Console.log X is type of, and then you call type of space the variable that you want to check the type. So if you run this code, you see X is type of string. This type of returns the data type in which a variable is, or a literal. So now I checked for X, it's telling me that it is string. And it is correct because remember how we identify string with the quote. Once you have a value with a quotation, either single quotes or double quotes, that is a string. So if we check Y, for example, console.log Y is type of Y. So what is type of Y? Boolean. So it's going to return Boolean because that is the type. The same if, for example, we make another variable G equals to 10, and we check for type of G. G is type of, so it's going to return number. Number, the integer in JavaScript, the type is number. The same if it's decimal, it's still number. So it's not going to tell you it's float. So the type of is number. Now, instance of. The type of checks for the type, that is the data type. But instance of tells you, right now it will be hard to understand because I wouldn't want to introduce this complex flow because you've not learned objects. But instance of tells us if a variable is an instance of a particular object. So since this one returns the type directly for us to compare, we can also want to check if G is an instance of a particular object. So the syntax is G instance of, you want to compare it like is a condition. You want to check if G is instance of number. So if we run this, say G is instance of is false because it's not a number. Remember that this says number as lowercase. We are talking about, this is tricky. I don't want to, how do I explain this? See, okay, let me just do this quickly. If I say new number 10 here and run this code, you see, it's going to return true. It's an instance of number because I created this with a number object. So you see type of for G here is saying it is an object instead of a number that it normally prints before. So the instance of always check if a variable is an instance of an object. So we're doing this like this. This is not an instance of an object unless you use the keyword new to create that object. Then this will reference it as true. The same with this. If I check for the instance of X, it's supposed to be a string. But if I do this, X instance of string, it's probably going to return false because this is not an object. We assign it to a string literal. But if we do new string, which is an object, and pass it this string, then this will return true because X is an instance of string because I created new string here. That is how instance of works. Type of returns the type in a string and you can use it to compare. How do you use type of in real life? You might want to do some calculation if the variable is a string. So you want to check, is this variable type, is it a number? Then if it is a number, then I want to add those values. If it is not a number, then I want to do something else with it. The same with this one. Maybe you want to access some property, then you have to first of all verify if it is an instance of a particular object. Then you know that that property will exist inside. Those are the real life usage of these two operators. The task for this class, use this variable I've defined here and write some chain comparisons that will return true for and, including or. Same here, the same condition, but it should return false. The result should be false. You can combine this as you like, combine it as you like to make chain condition, but make sure that the result is true and false in this case. Yeah, that is it for this class.